So I'm Ajay, this is Lucky, as you know. And we're here today to talk to you guys about what we call the empathy of easy distribution, and what we think is a completely different prototype for business people. In other words, for the students in the audience, we want to try to give you some tips on how you can succeed in today's business world.
And more importantly, we want to share some context on how this formula has changed for your generation, and maybe ours if we're being kind in particular.
But before we get started, let us just share a tiny bit about ourselves so you can figure out whether or not you want to really pay attention to us. There we go. Okay, as I said, my name is Ajay. Sorry. I'm the founder of The Inevitable Collective, which is a seed stage venture fund that funds software companies that push the world forward. Before that, I was an early executive and led product growth at two high-growth startups, Grovo Learning and Inventure. I'm also a mentor for Techstars, which is one of the biggest accelerators in the country, and the United Nations Entrepreneurship Council. All in, across the portfolio, I've helped raise and co-invested up to $100 million with firms like Selfawareness, Google Ventures, and Lowercase Capital.
And I'm Lance K Gobindram, co-founder and president of OUB Studios, a digital innovation lab born and bred in New York City. We have worked with brands such as HTC, Nissan, Bose to help bring them their digital experiences to life, as well as startups. All in, we've co-invested $10 million and worked with investors such as FFPC, NEA, Zach Aarons. 2011, I was nominated as an outstanding 50 Asian American in business. Most interestingly, in 2007, I dropped out of George Washington University. You may ask why I'm sharing that. As we go through his presentation, you'll begin to understand. Okay, so the first thing we want to do here is define what social capital looks like to most of you. And to most of you, it looks something like this. Graduate from a great college, get a job at a big bank consulting firm, then go to grad school, climb the ladder, lock, stock, compensation, maybe you're on the partner track, build very sequentially.
But look, guys, this is the thing. These things are completely changing, or at least every day they're becoming a little bit less right. Here are just a couple examples of people that we think prove this case. Won't spend a ton of time on it, but a couple examples you're probably familiar with. Right, Mark Zuckerberg is right behind me, hopefully you can see him. Super smart guy, obviously, studied really hard, got into Harvard, was doing well, probably could have got a job at any company in the world that he wanted after he graduated. But he chose to drop out and he started arguably the most transformative company of our generation, Facebook. Someone you may not know as well is the gentleman located just to the left of, or to the right of him, his name is Chamath Palihapitiya. He's Sri Lankan, grew up in Canada, grew up on welfare, went to school you probably never think of, which is the University of Waterloo, almost failed out, stumbled out with an electrical engineering degree, and is now probably one of the most successful business executives of our time. From 2008, I think, to about 2010, maybe 2007, 2010, Chamath led growth at Facebook and took them from 10 million to almost 1 billion users. He now runs one of the most successful venture funds in the country, is a co-owner of the Golden State Warriors, all by the age of 35. Never went to grad school, never worked at a big bank or a consulting firm. And see, Mark and Chamath are examples of kind of one of the key points that we want to make in our talk today. And that's the way that society, we as a society, allocates social and professional capital is completely changing. So we're going to give you a couple little stats and some pieces of evidence to help you understand what we mean by this. The first is that a lot less of us and you are going to business and law school. And I'm a law school graduate myself. But 2015 marks a 15-year low in law school applications. And business school applications have been declining steadily for the last 5 years. Even if you just look at your Google searches, you can see that a lot less of you express an interest in going to a business or a law school. Second thing we want to bring up is that a lot less people, and lucky in my generation, are buying homes and purchasing cars. And you might wonder, what does this have to do with what we're talking about? What do purchasing patterns have to do with career success? Well, it's kind of about signals, right? It's about signals of success, aka social capital, and how these things are changing. The way you used to signal success was by what you owned and what you purchased. But now with the advent of things like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, it's a lot more fluid. It's a lot less about what you own, and a lot more about what you're doing, where you're visiting, who you're hanging out with, what you're learning, what you're experiencing. And that's probably why 2020 is supposed to be the first year in the US economy where the experience economy is going to outpace the goods economy.
That's Ajay's version. I think he sees himself as some sort of amateur economist. Me, I'm more literal. So let's take what I think is a clear demonstration. Let's take Harvard itself, the quintessential staple of the old order if there ever was one. In particular, let's look at their commencement speakers over the last 30 years. From 1984 to 2004, every single speaker held some sort of public office or spent some time in high academia. Prominent examples include Paul Volcker, former Fed chairman, 3 Ivy League degrees; Derek Bok, former president of Harvard, 3 degrees, 2 Ivy Leagues; Alan Greenspan, former Fed chairman, 30 degrees including a PhD; Daniel Patrick Moynihan, former U.S. senator, diplomat, Harvard professor, 4 degrees including a PhD. Even the non-American speakers sported degrees from places like MIT, Kofi Annan, or taught at Harvard, Amrita Sen, or were presidents of other countries. On the other hand, since 2005, 3 entrepreneurs, a journalist, 2 authors, and an actor have spoken at Harvard commencements. Just 3 have held public office or been in high academia. For example, John Lithgow graduated from Harvard, but you all probably best know him for his time spent on TV. Bill Gates dropped out of Harvard to build computers in a garage. J.K. Rowling proudly admits that she stumbled into a BA from the University of Exeter after being rejected from Oxford. Oprah Winfrey didn't even graduate high school. She started off as a grocery clerk.
Now, assuming you're with us in the fact that things have changed, I'm going to try to offer an explanation as to maybe why and how they have. And it starts again with one really simple truth. The internet and modern technology have changed the world, but particularly the way value is created and businesses are built. This in turn is rapidly changing the characteristics of people that are likely to succeed in such a world, and it changes the way we recognize professional worth as well. We're going to try to get into it now, but this is kind of where stuff gets pretty heavy, so if you have some coffee or Coke nearby, feel free to take a sip. So first and foremost, software is eating the world. This is a common phrase among Silicon Valley technologists, but its meaning is actually quite simple. It just means that an increasing number of things that we use are software, or in large part powered by software. Think about how much time you spend on your phone playing with apps. Think about how many of your cars are increasingly controlled by software. Think about even maybe your thermostats in your home. The second thing is that more and more of the software is being built for the cloud, which among other things means it can be distributed exclusively through the internet. In 2014, 85% of all software was built for the cloud. Compare that to your parents going to buy software probably in the late 90s, early 2000s. They go to a store like CompUSA, out of business now, right? Go to the rack, try to find a box of software, maybe they're sold out, maybe they're not. Bring it home, wait to get home, put it on their computer, look up how to install it, wait for it to install, et cetera, et cetera. Very inconvenient, very clunky, but not anymore. The third thing is that while cloud-driven software is eating the world, cheap smartphones are helping to bring internet to billions of people across the world. You may not believe it, but by 2020, most Africans are actually expected to have a smartphone of their own. Fourth thing, social networks like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, email, WhatsApp, they're using this massive internet penetration to truly connect us as a globe for potentially the first time. One example is my favorite, but Facebook. 1.5 billion people check Facebook every month. That's almost exactly half of the percentage of the world that has access to the internet. Sometimes 1 billion people check it any given day. Fourth thing here, I don't know why that happened. Fifth thing is that self-serve ad platforms built on top of these networks are making it incredibly easy and democratic for businesses to reach consumers across the globe with their products and services. It takes between 2 and 3 minutes to start running an ad on Facebook, Twitter, or Google, whether you're the CEO of Pepsi or an intern for a software startup working out of a garage. Fifth thing, the icing on the cake are what we call APIs and the open culture of sharing that they represent. This culture invites new products and services to build on top of and leverage the networks and data of existing products and services. So how many people in the audience here have used Uber? Right, a bunch of you. It's pretty easy, right, to share with your Uber driver where you are, and it's pretty easy for them to find you because they use the Google Maps API. That's something that Uber didn't have to invest in and build themselves, and it rapidly accelerated their time to market. So the implications of these changes are pretty important too, and they all center on one center truth. As distribution becomes easier and easier, building winning businesses is increasingly just about having the best product. And as we go through these implications, we're going to split up into the demand side, which is us as consumers, as users. and the supply side, which is the folks, the companies and the folks that are trying to build products that you want to use. So on the demand side, the lower, as distribution becomes more efficient and easy, it lowers the cost of bringing a product to market, which creates more choice for us as consumers.
At the same time, the free exchange of information, user-generated content, reviews on Amazon when you buy a product, threads on product hunt, it makes it a lot easier for us as consumers to be more informed as we make decisions on what we want to buy and what we want to do.
Right. Finally, the non-permanence of the app and software marketplace. So just think about how easy it is for you to download an app, give it a try, and say, nah, I don't like it, I'm going to uninstall it. Or free trials, right? How often are you able to try a software for a month before you have to start paying for it? All these things empower us to try a bunch of things without the premature cost of commitment or buyer's remorse.
On the supply side, self-serve APIs and ads are by definition democratic and merit-based. There's little room for backroom deals or negotiations when it takes just a few minutes to start running ads and everyone pays the same exact market rate per click.
And paid acquisition and APIs notwithstanding, the single most powerful form of distribution that the internet has unlocked is just word of mouth. It's just being able to say, hey, this thing that I tried is really cool, you should try it too. And increasingly, companies that have the best product monopolize all of that benefit.
So what should you do? How do you set yourself up for success in this experience-driven, product-centric, globally connected world? First and foremost, dismiss the lore. A lot of lessons from yesterday simply just don't apply anymore. I'm sorry, parents. The bigger the brand, the better. Nowadays, bigger the brand, the slower the curve to the top. Higher education is a signal of success. While it's still a great source of knowledge, training, connections, a degree from a great school means a lot less than even when we were in your shoes as students. Sharp elbows is just business. Cruel people don't win in this economy. Smart people do. Lastly, the need for basic accounting. Within the next 5-10 years, the majority of accounting will be automated. Don't you think it's more important that you spend some time learning to code?
All right, so what does matter then? What does it take to be great in this new world of business? We actually think it comes down to 3 basic things. First thing is empathy. Empathy is the ability, in our opinion, the ability and tendency to put yourself in the shoes of others, like your customers, so you can understand their problems and be equipped to solve them. Second thing is computer science, like Lucky was mentioning. In a world that's increasingly being eaten by cloud-driven software, an increasing number of the world's problems are and will be solved with products made in code. Third thing is just a comfort with data, so you can know if your product is actually good at solving the problem you set out to solve and what you need to do to make it better. It's going to take being great at one of these 3 things to really succeed, and the people best equipped to succeed will be good at all 3.
The first tip I have for you is to study the right stuff, and worry a lot less than you probably are about where you're studying it. So if you see this graph behind me, the color's a little bit skewed, but the top line is red and the bottom line is blue. The red line is engineering, computer science, the bottom line is arts and humanities. You can see here from a clear focus in technical fields is a far bigger determinant on the financial return on your education than where you actually study it. It's directly correlated to what you study.
Second tip we have is for you to invest in self-awareness. Empathy starts with a really clear and honest understanding of yourself. So let's try an exercise here. How many people here have binge-watched a show on Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, whatever? Yeah, I have too, a lot of us. Okay, now this is the hard part. How many of you can identify, the episode, the introduction of a new character, the turn in the plot, some specific moment where you knew you were hooked, you were addicted, you were going to finish that show? Okay, a couple of outstanding, we can talk later, because this is actually a thing I use to interview for empathy. The key to empathy is really starting with what you can control, which is yourself. So next time you start watching a show, please keep an extra eye out for that moment in the show where you feel like you're extra addicted. Understanding this in yourself will make you much more capable to find it and understand it in others. Which brings us to our last point, comfort in data. Sorry, I'll go back for a second. The example here is that, data is a lot less about loving to work with numbers, in our opinion, or hating to work with words, than just having and nurturing an actual desire to know the truth. To stop guessing and pontificating and debating, and to get to a statistically sound relationship that tells you X equals Y, or Y will lead to Z. That's the single most powerful thing in business. An example is Netflix. They do actually know the moment in their most popular series where the majority of the audience gets addicted. And another example, who here uses Facebook? Who here has checked Facebook this month? All right, this week, today, the last hour. Okay. Not surprising, also not a coincidence. Early into its existence, product leaders at Facebook found they could get a new user to 7 friends in 10 days. They were almost guaranteed to be a loyal and active user. And they spent almost all of their time in the early days optimizing for this one core metric, data-driven metric. College by college, city by city, and country by country.
The last thing we want to share is we can't overstate the importance of remembering that you're competing in a global economy. Look, we know what it's like to be at Friends Academy, in your shoes as a student. Super competitive. Everyone's fighting over a few select spots at their dream college. Parental expectations can be through the roof. But to be honest, that should be the least of your worries. There are people in places like Kenya, India, Brazil, Mexico that face significantly larger challenges every single day. And they're competing for the same jobs, the same careers, and the same dreams as you.
So our advice is pretty simple. Let your humility be your hunger. Expect great things from yourself, but don't feel entitled. There's no coupon for you to redeem in the global economy. And honestly, with each passing day, your head start, our head start, it shrinks. So have empathy, learn to code, seek truth in the form of data, work really, really hard, and learn as much as you can. Life isn't necessarily fair, but as we're arguing, the global economy is making things incredibly efficient. The harder you work and the faster you learn, the more likely you are to succeed. See, a lot of people in our generation, and probably many of you, we grow up with a really specific image of a business person.
He was a man who wore a suit, he was a charming salesman, crafty financial engineer, or a ruthless manager. He networked, closed deals, and if he didn't get work in finance, he dreamed of working in finance.
So yeah, he read the Wall Street Journal, but as much of a signal of his success than as a source of actual information. Because he kind of hid behind brands, instead of getting out in front of them or building new ones. He was successful because of the value he captured, not what he created. And for those reasons, we can't imagine empathy was really important to him. But that's why he's growing increasingly obsolete every day. Again, replaced by people who want to build stuff, who care deeply, and who ultimately will create a lot more value than they capture. We can't wait to see what you guys create and the heights you reach. Why say the sky's the limit when you can see the footprints on the moon?
Thank you.